I am sitting down with a person I know or have heard a ton about. We don't know each other. We've never met each other, but I'm with P.T. Wood in Wood's Distillery.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me. This is great.
Yeah. Yeah. How long have you been in Salida? When did you get here?
So I moved here in the late 80s to be a river guide. And I think it was like 88 was my first summer. And then I was splitting summers and winters between here in Durango until 1991. And then I moved here full-time year-round.
Yeah. What was it like here in the early 80s? What was downtown like?
Downtown was boarded up, closed down, and not much going on. It was an interesting time. Salida was, the mines were closing, the railroad was leaving. It was a little shuttered, but at the same time, the community was super tight and was super, just really a different feel to it. There weren't that many people here, right? Like, my first year-round job was running Headwaters Outdoor Equipment, which was Ray Kitson's outdoor business where the boathouse is now, right? And we'd go months between customers, it felt like, but the folks that came in were your buddies and your friends. And, you'd spend hours visiting with folks at a time because there was no hurry to get anywhere or do anything, it seemed like back then. Yeah.
Ray Kitson. Where's Ray from? That's a name that I've heard we lived here from 16 to 19.
Yeah.
And, that name's pretty prominent in the area. Where did Ray come from?
Yeah, Littleton.
Littleton?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And he came up here and he's, that guy, he's a controversial figure, but he's a great dude.
Yeah. 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 He's been behind a lot of the development and changes. And that I know you were mayor at one point, and we'll get into that. And because mountain towns can be really difficult to navigate politically.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I know you experienced that, but so you came here in the 80s and then went back and forth from Durango.
Yep.
Was Durango going pretty good? Yeah. I went to Durango in the 80s skiing.
Yeah.
So it was going pretty good.
Yeah. And I think, one of the reasons I left Durango, I was torn a little bit. I was like, do I wind up living, year round in Durango or up in the valley here? And Durango was getting too busy and too hectic and too crazy. And I was a whitewater guy, right? I was a raft guide, kayaker, all that. And the river is just so much better here than it is down there. The Animas is great for a few weeks out of the year, but this is awesome year round.
Yeah. What was the river like in the 80s? I talked to Mike Harvey and he said that, that the mining operations had kind of basically rerouted it and it was full of just concrete and rebar and riprap.
Yeah. The downtown river was such a different experience back then. My first fib arc was 1984, and I came up from Durango with some buddies to do that. And I had only just started kayaking at the time. And maybe the fourth or fifth time I'd ever been in a kayak, I entered the slalom because, I was young and not very bright. Peeled out of the start, immediately flipped over and swam. And it took me a long, long time to get out. There was nowhere safe to get out of the river. It was rebar and overgrown and chunks of concrete and just, this steep bank. Yeah. And I did, luckily, but it's so much better now than it was.
Yeah, it's changed. So I started coming through here. The first time I remember actually stopping downtown was 2004. A friend had done Leadville and we crewed for him and we stopped and ate at Amicus. And after that, this is my history with you that you don't know. We stopped at Moonlight Pizza in 07. Did you own it in 07?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that place has anchored us here forever. And I think it set the seed initially for moving here, but the Venus with pesto. Oh yeah, that's our favorite pizza.
Yeah, it's a great pizza. Yeah, I loved owning Moonlight Pizza. That was such a cool gig. I think we bought that in 2001 or 2, and then my ex-wife Kim and her husband Scott bought me out in 2009, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it moved on to the folks that own it now. So yeah, great. And we bought it from Nathan Ward, and just this great history of interesting locals that have owned Moonlight Pizza. And it's my wife is one of the managers at Amica's and a part owner there, so I love Amica's, but I love the Moonlight Pizza style of pizza. That I love it.
I call it Colorado pizza. It's it's not thick, but not thin.
Yep.
A lot of veggies. Chicken. It's kind of crazy. Some people are opposed to chicken on a pizza, but we love it. It doesn't overwhelm the pizza. Elkhorn and BV. We stay in BV for the summer, and they have a very similar pizza to the. I didn't know if they ripped off Moonlight or if it's just the.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
but it's a cool Colorado style. It's a blending of different kind of pizza genres into one that's awesome. Yeah,
very, very hearty. So we stopped in there on a Jeep trip, I think it was 04, 05. No, it was 05. And, it was just a little bitty gas station at that point.
Oh, yeah.
And you were pretty close. And then we just watched it grow and grow and grow and to this brewery now.
Yep. Yeah. I think when I owned it, we had 5 or 6 tables inside. And we had a little patio outdoors, but it was teeny. And the entire time I owned it, I was also building houses during the day. So we didn't open till 4 o'clock. So I'd get up at 6, go build houses all day, get in there at 3, open up by 4, and then we closed at 10, I guess, 9 or 10, depending on the night, and then get up and redo it again. Kind of the Salida story, right? It's not an S, it's a 5 for the number of jobs you have to live here.
That's the first time I have heard that. But I always say when we moved here, I was in my 40s. Both my wife and I were in our late 40s, and we had kind of upended our lives. We were in this big change, and we'd been living in an Airstream for about 3 years. We'd sold all of our property and had planned to do that for a year and roamed about, and then finally settled here. And, she had several jobs, and I wound up working for Oveja Negra and got really embedded in the community. And then we got Texas sick. And now that we're in Texas, we're like, it's all we can do to just be back here.
Yep.
And we've got such a great community and made so many friends. We've actually got more community here in Salida and BV than back home.
That's great.
So it's just that's kind of why I've had this idea to do this as a magazine story originally. And I had envisioned thinking about taking 4 or 5 people that I know. I started out saying shaped, but maybe enriched or make Salida tick. Is a better, because I think Salida has been enriched since the beginning.
Oh, for sure.
But it's just evolved into a really, really fantastic mountain town. It's always been a great mountain town, but it's just so different from when we were here in 16. You go down in the river, and it's like a water park.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's wild, right? It's pretty cool. And it's been, I love the new surf wave, the new scout wave. I think that is, it's been controversial, I know, and some folks have gotten fired up about it, but I think it's just brilliant. And I think it brings this amazing beach dynamic to downtown that is just unique in the world.
Controversial? I didn't know it was controversial.
Yeah, I think last year when the water got up a little bit, it was a little bit destructive and a little bit challenging to get your raft through there. And this is kind of the more mellow section. So to have a feature right in the middle that maybe made it a little more challenging, got some folks fired up, and rightfully so. But the city went back in, did a bunch of work on it, right? And this is version 3, and it's I think it's brilliant. Worked great this year. It was let boats go by easily. Surfers were just having a blast out there. And I live right at the bottom of S Mountain, so I kind of have a front row seat to what's going on over there. And there are people over there surfing every day of the year. If the eddies aren't iced over in the wintertime, there are people out there surfing. It is wild.
So are you in one of the new houses at the base of S Mountain, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
those are really cool.
Yeah, that was, so in 2004, 5, I had sold my house over on Park Avenue and had a little bit of money set aside, and I really wanted to live over on the north side of the river, right?
Yeah.
And so I started to poke around a little bit, and my buddy Susan Dempsey, who now owns Pinion, had just started into real estate, and I'm like, man, I want to live over there. Find me something. And she came back to me and was like, hey, so the Everett's own S Mountain. Maybe you should talk to Judy Everett and see if that's for sale. And I called up Judy and was like, hey, I want to buy S Mountain from you. And she's like, I don't think we own that. You know, the Everett's, they own thousands of acres around here. And I was like, yeah, you do. And she was like, we do? Okay, yeah, I'd sell that. And so we went through this whole 4-year process. The city was not super psyched about houses up there, and I get that, fully appreciated that. And the railroad was a little bit like, well, you can't get there from here and all this stuff. And ultimately where we landed was I bought 21 acres from the Everetts and then traded that to the city for an acre and a half strip along the bottom. And we put in utilities and a road, and which was actually just redoing the original County Road 177, which was the original wagon road, actually the first road in the county. And then subdivided that and sold some off and paid for the development, made a little bit of money, had a little extra left over after that. And that was some of the seed money for the distillery. And then finally, just a little over 2 years ago now, I finally got to move into my house at the bottom of S Mountain after, 18 years of trying.
Yeah, we watched the first couple of houses go in there.
Yeah.
And then it's just really flourished and building a nice little community. When we first lived here, there was a guy that lived in one of those houses that I don't know how long it had been there, but he would drag the dirt.
Daily. Mr. Espinoza.
Yeah.
Yep.
He'd be out there.
He's great. I love those guys.
Yeah.
They were, I'd go over and visit with those guys fairly often, especially as we were starting to do our project, because I knew it was going to have an effect on the local kind of folks that had been over there for a long time. RT, who was the mayor back when the original skate park was built, and Jack and Linda and the Espinosas and all of that. So I was really trying to reach out to the folks that live over there before we got anything going. And it was, turned out pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm sure there's some controversy with that, with building a base of just anything you do in a mountain town, someone's got an opinion, and everyone's really passionate here about their space and about disrupting the river. That's, you kind of got to respect that and love that. But the Scout Wave is, it's super. I have not done any river surfing. It's one of those things you got to kind of pick and choose what your time.
Yep, for sure.
And we've done a lot of paddleboard touring and flatwater stuff. And I'm just like, every year we come, we think we're going to hit the river, but it's just so busy.
Yep.
And we still never get done. So I think next year I'm going to make this quest, this surfing quest is what we have decided, and come and I talked to Mike about it, and he said, yeah, winter's pretty good because it's not crowded. And I said, I love cold water. I love getting in cold water, especially the winter. I think
it's a cool aesthetic too. I think, I don't know. I keep thinking about taking up river surfing, but it took me 8 years to learn how to roll my kayak. So I started kayaking in the early 80s, and I think it was 91 before I had a reliable river roll there. And I swam the bejesus out of every single river in the state. I think the first time I ran Gore Canyon, which is kind of the iconic Class 5 section of whitewater in the state, I did not know how to roll my kayak.
Oh.
I had been trying. I'd been boating for about 8 years at that point, and it just wasn't happening for me. And I flipped at the very top of Kirschbaum, which is the last and longest rapid in Gore Canyon, and started to whack my head on the bottom and just popped right up, and never had another problem with my roll after that. It was
survival
an
instinct.
epiphany, I think they call that.
Yeah.
But it was wild.
So you bounced your head off the bottom of the river to roll.
Yeah, apparently. I have no idea. Maybe I just hit it hard enough that it knocked loose my inabilities there.
Yeah. So did you guide as well on the river?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
So I guided for AAE for 5 years, maybe.
That's something we learned, that these Colorado mountain towns, and the ski towns are a little different, but they're built on the backs of river guides.
Yep.
And I don't know, you can see river guides that are bums, and that's kind of the only thing they're ever going to do. But for the most part, those guys come here and they see opportunity. They buy a house because they want to live here.
Yeah.
And then that house increases in value. And I've got a good friend that's a river guide. Before we moved here, I didn't know that you could come with no experience and go to guide school and be running a boat that season.
Yep.
And I think it teaches you leadership skills, and you have to command a boat, and you're responsible for people's lives.
Yep.
And those guys come here, and like you just built this a great business, and we're setting in the Woods High Mountain Distillery.
Yep.
And y'all do what's your spirits?
Oh boy, we do. Let me think, 3 or 4 different whiskeys right now. A malt whiskey, our Tenderfoot, our Alpine Rye whiskey, our Dawn Patrol, single malt whiskey. And then we always have a distiller's reserve that kind of fluctuates just depending on what's ready. So right now we have a 7-year-old version of the rye that's fantastic. I think I have some older Tenderfoot coming up, a few other things like that. We do potato vodka that we do with the
you show me that.
From the potatoes, from our grains for our whiskey come from the San Luis Valley, but our potatoes also for our vodka come from the San Luis Valley. And it's super interesting. We work with a company down in Center, and they freeze dry and then hammer mill those potatoes. So we're able to use the skins in that potato vodka. And it's got this amazing thick mouthfeel and this great earthy sweetness to it. I think it is one of the world's great vodkas that is undiscovered by most people. But if you have a chance, it is. To me, it's this like magical spirit.
Okay, yeah, we can give that a try. I've had your gin. I'm a gin and tonic guy, so that's we really love your gin.
Yeah, and we do 3 different gins. One with some Cascade hops that we get from the Billy Goat Farm over by Montrose, and a more traditional gin, or tree line gin, and then we do an aged version of that, which is just like indescribably good.
This is the first time that I've done a podcast on a forklift, so this is
I know, right?
I don't know.
Like, hey, table.
Yeah,
I got one.
Yeah. You like? I thought you were going to pull a table up from behind the forklift, and you pull the forklift up, and you're like, toot, toot, and then you put this, and you're like, all right, table, and I love it. It's sloping down, so my mic's moving, but I can't imagine of it. This really sets the tone. So we interviewed Sarah Gartzman on top of the Biker and Baker.
Yep, that's an awesome spot up there.
Oh man, I mean, we had S Mountain behind us, and it almost looked like it was a backdrop or something.
Yeah.
We had some clouds come in and change the light a little bit, but and I've known Sarah off and on since we moved here, and have watched Sweeties grow. And I told her, I said, it's really tough to run a restaurant in a mountain town and have product all the time.
Yeah.
It's very rare that I've been there that they go, oh, we don't have.
Right.
You go lots of places and it's like, here's a list of what we don't have today.
Yep.
And I was like, you've just done a great job of
yeah, those guys, they're awesome. They're good folks, and they've just been great for the community since they got here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just the slowly building of this community. When we came through here, we got stuck on the side of Monarch Pass in 2007. It'd been snowed over. We were on the way to Crested Butte, spring break. And we stopped like we normally did and hit. We went and ran. We stopped at the F Street cul-de-sac and ran on dry trails. I've told this story about 2 or 3 different times now. So in this podcast, people will be like, stop saying that story. But we ran on dry trails, and it just set the seed in our mind of like, there's a town in Colorado that there's dry trails in March.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we wound up moving here, 9 years later. And it just, to sit there and do that podcast and look at S Mountain and know that's just the centerpiece of kind of that and the river.
Yep.
I think just really put Salida on this trajectory of a, because I always I don't argue with people, but like, I think this is the best mountain bike town.
Yep.
Maybe in the country.
Yeah. Maybe the world. Yeah.
Because you'll keep building new trails.
Yep.
Over and over. And I've been looking at my next guest, and I've been thinking about the president of S Mountain Trails.
Yep.
I think just because trail advocacy, and am I correct in this? A portion of like sales and businesses in Salida go to trail building. Is that still?
Yeah. So it depends on the business. So different businesses will do that additional 1% to some organization. And we've done that off and on, depending on need we've worked with the Colorado Central Conservancy, with the Community Foundation, some other groups like that. And I know in the past, I don't know if they still do it or not, but the Boathouse has done that for SMT and other groups. And my wife, Christy Falcon, runs the Run Through Time, which is a trail half and full marathon that happens every March. And a large part of the money that she raises through that goes to SMT for just new trails, for trail maintenance, for just all the things that they do.
Yeah, you've got a fantastic in-town trail system that's marked. That's my thing, marked. And you know which way to go. If it's a directional trail, you can go up Bear Creek, get in the high country. Yep. You can go up on Monarch Pass. And it's just.
Go do the Crest Trail.
And,
And there's it's great. And, I think like, I love going to like Fruita, and I love going to Moab and Crested Butte and other places. But most of those places, you have to drive out of town to get to the trailhead. And ours is right downtown. And there's, I think last count, like 70 something miles of single track just right there. And then if you tie that into the other pieces that it connects to, it's hundreds of miles.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling how great the trail system is here.
To park here and not have, like in Carbondale, you've got to do the same thing. I think Carbondale's got a nice trail system as well, but Salida really, and y'all just keep building more and more. I mean, adding more, and the trail construction is always top notch. And there's challenging trails, and there's nice beginner friendly trails, and everyone's really nice. When you encounter people on the trails, and you build that, and I think that's just what really, that and the river, cleaning up the river, and the work that Mike did was developing rapids and the river park, and now my wife teaches yoga at Yoga Olis. She's been subbing for a friend on Saturdays, and she'll teach yoga, and then we'll go down to Bunny and Clyde's and get some chicken salad and stuff, and just sit on the river and watch. I mean, that wasn't the case 10 years ago where people got on kickboards or just put on a life jacket and a wetsuit and float down a river.
Yeah, no, it's, we've really developed into Colorado's beach town.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because everybody's like, oh, we're a ski town in Colorado. We're a ski town. And Salida's a beach town, and it's cool.
Yeah. To back up a little bit, we were talking about that this town is based in some roots of like, farming and ranching and mining. So
sure.
I feel like that's what's kept Salida really grounded instead of becoming, highfalutin.
Right.
And when we moved here, we were really impressed at how nice everybody was.
Yeah.
Especially, and I've said this over and over in the podcast, as Texans, you go to places, sometimes you're kind of like, oh boy, y'all again, here you come. But Salida we never got any of that.
Uh-huh.
And it was we were just really welcomed. And it helped that my wife really embedded at Yoga Olis and really, got us embraced by the community, because she's a character. She puts on a really great class.
Yeah, that's great.
And it kind of set the tone for us. And then we met Lane Wilson, and that kind of led me to work for her. And once you get embedded with Lane,
you're in. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I remember we were walking down Main Street one time and came across Lane. She's getting out of her car, and we just kind of knew her. Mm-hmm. And she introduced us to her kids, and she goes, "These are my good friends, Brandon and Allison." I'm like, they were Lane's good friends. But I think lots of people are Lane's good friends, but it was just, it really felt welcoming, and we loved it. And we got to be good friends with Joe Judd. We bought our house from him. And so it was just, we're sad every summer when we have to leave. And we keep thinking about trying to find a little chunk of land we can park a trailer on, but that's hard to come by.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it is. It's one of the big challenges here is we're 82% public land in the county. There isn't a lot of space here in the bottom of the valley. And you mentioned the great ag tradition that we have here, and that's one of the big things that we focus on every day at the county is how do we make sure that we preserve our ag heritage, and how do we make sure that our ag producers are able to stay here and continue in that great tradition, and that keep their lands productive, irrigated ag lands. That's where all those beautiful green vistas at the bottom of the valley come from, is our ag producers locally. Those are their hay fields. And if we don't have that, they dry up, they get overrun with weeds, we lose those vistas, there's more dust, there's more heat. If they get turned into developments, that's not ideal. So there's some big challenges around that, but I think we're up to tackling those.
Yeah, they get crowded, and so we bought into one of the first really, I don't want to call it alternative, but our house was in Crestone Mesa. And when we moved in there, before we moved, we did some research and read about it, and it was kind of a controversial little neighborhood.
I was on planning when when that went through, and boy, that was a challenge to work through that subdivision and keep, the neighbors were upset because they were going to lose their views, and the traffic was going to increase, and a number of things that happened to some degree, but didn't happen to the degree that people were afraid of. And it's turned into a great neighborhood, and a lot of great folks living there that are really contributing to the community. And
we go through there all the time and meet and talk to all of our old friends. Our neighbors they had come from Wisconsin, were artists, and have built a great life here. And there's a couple of builder friends that live over there. But Crestone Mesa, we had read an article my wife was in town talking to someone, and she said, was talking about Crestone Mesa. She goes, well, they've built this new neighborhood in town, and it's just, they got these ugly houses. And my wife's like, that's where we live.